already the first Cal-Human Citizens Assembly ever. We will get started with the assembly now. I have with me the citizens that have been part of this assembly already. And then you are the audience. You are not allowed to join the assembly, but you can watch, and then we will have time for reflection and questions and all of that after the assembly. So let's start with the official assignment of this assembly. So their assignment was to develop a future vision for how cows and humans live in the region, the Achterhoek, in 2050. And for the non-Dutch people, the Achterhoek is a region in the east of the Netherlands, where it's a rural area close to Germany, where there is a lot of dairy farming at the moment, and also nature areas and some issues with nitrogen that you might have heard of. And now the question is, what do we want from the future? The assignment is to give advice on policy measures and legislations to achieve the vision. And they have the mandate that if there is 80% consent on an advised measure, then the government will take over this, provided it's not in contradiction with the constitution or something. And there's the assignment to represent cows and future generation humans, because those are groups that are often left out of the democratic process. So of these citizens, 4 have been asked to represent cows, and 2 have been asked to represent the people that are children in 2050. And there was a bit of the question of how should the ratio between cows and humans be, because I calculated that your chances of being born as a cow in the province of Gelderland, in which the Achterhoek is located, is about 20 times higher than your chance of being born as a human. But we did not have hundreds of people, so we couldn't have that ratio. But it still skewed a bit in favor that there are a bit more cows. And also with the 80% consent, it would be very interesting if you have 20 cows to 1 human, let alone when you also have the chickens and the pigs and stuff. But for now, we're going with 4 cows and 2 humans. Yeah, and we are going to start with a perspective-taking declaration. So if you can please stand up.
We declare that for the duration of this assembly, we will embody the perspectives of
Mira,
Willemien,
174.
Janneke,
en Karel.
to the best of our abilities.
Thank you, you may be seated. And part of the process of a citizens' assembly is that experts are involved. And we have one expert present here, and that's Leonie. And we have an expert on being on 4 paws instead of 2 legs here as well, that's Gaio. But maybe Leonie, you can quickly introduce yourself.
Yes, of course. I'm working at the Royal Academy, Netherlands Academy in Maastricht University, and my expertise in recent years is animal language, in particular cow, dairy cow language.
Thank you. And we also have Bram van Helvoort, but we have some technical issues. He's on now on the Teams, but the microphone is not working, but he will contribute after we close the PowerPoint, and then we can hear from him. And then of course we've also encountered other experts, such as the cows that we visited of the farm De Plak, and also the farmer that worked there gave us a lot of information. There's Bart Blijerveld, who works at Artes Theater Theater Educator, Artist Education, and he was more involved in asking his students to be involved, to be one student involved from Artes. And there's Joël van Boeren, a landscape architect, who gave a workshop on the landscape in the Achterhoek and what possibilities there are there. And there's Bureau Burgerberaad, they're organizations that has a lot of expertise on actual citizens' assemblies in the Netherlands, and they help organize citizens' assemblies. So far, we've had 4 sessions of 4 hours, and we have spent a lot of time working on perspective taking and trying to embody the perspectives of cows or future children using storytelling, theater exercises. We've also done a lot of research, reading books about cows and doing a lot of research on also like veterinary pages about the bodies of cows and how they've changed since the original cows used to live in Europe. And then we've created a future vision that we will share with you soon, and then backcasted that future vision into policy measures. And it's important to realize that this is not a clean linear process, but you keep going back to the embodiment, and then you get input, you get some ideas from measures, but then you feel, oh, I like information, you do a bit more research, and so on. And then eventually we ended up with a future vision. And as I explained, storytelling and creating biographies for the individuals that you are representing is an important part of the process, because representing an abstract group of cows is more difficult than representing an individual. So they've all created biographies of a specific cow or human child, and we will also share this with you now to help you also take on those perspectives. So what we have here is the special magical theater space where we can do things that cannot happen in a real assembly. And whenever someone goes there, they can speak directly as the cow or even as a child from the future. So now I want to invite Mira to share her story.
I am Mira. I'm 5 years old. I've been staying here with the others all my life. A calf has just been born. I hear it, I smell it. It is licked clean by the mother. The farmer is also here. He looks happy. I think it's a girl. It won't be long before the calf will be taken away, I know that. I've experienced that a few times too. Already 3 times. Each time they were taken away and set aside. I do not know why. All I know is that I cried for days, until I felt that there was no point and they didn't come back to me anyway. It will be my turn again in a while, then my next calf comes out, number 4. I feel it moving sometimes. I hope it can stay with me this time. I really want to keep it with me and feed and protect it myself. Take it outside and lay in the grass together. When I dream about that, I feel completely warm inside and quiet. I didn't know my own mother. I consider the group my family. The 2 oldest from the stable were taken by the farmer yesterday, and they're still not back. I'm worried they won't come back either. That feels strange in the group without them. The others are also restless. I noticed that. I'm tired and I'm going to lay down for a while. Fortunately, there's enough straw for me to lie down. Now that I'm carrying a calf, the farmer always gives me the best spot in the stable. That's nice. After every birth, I resolve that I really don't want a calf after this. If it's taken away, preferably not again. But every time, after a few months, I feel something moving inside me, and I know it's that time again. Could the farmer have something to do with it? Anyway, I think that's bad. The farmer and a few people sometimes stand behind me and put something in me. I don't know what exactly they do, just that it doesn't feel good. As if they are doing something sneaky behind my back that they shouldn't be doing. Maybe next time I can make it clear that I don't want that anymore and start stomping hard with my hind legs. I would like to stay here, but no longer want to give up a calf every year.
Thank you. So these biographies were one part of the preparatory process, and of course, like I mentioned, also the input from experts. So we had a workshop on the landscape, that was also one of the main focuses. where we looked at a specific area in the Achterhoek and see how this has changed over time. And then we thought about what cows and children would want from the future, and then we use AI to generate images of what that could look like. I will explain a bit more about the content of the future vision later. But now for the process, of course you have to meet some cows if you want to do a citizen assembly on cows. So we went to a dairy farm here near Nijmegen to meet the real experts, the cows. And before I share the future vision, I want to hear the story from Koen, please.
I am a cow. I am beautiful. Today I was in the meadow and it was wonderful. The sun was shining, it felt so warm on my skin. I stood there together with my sisters, my cousins, and my friends. We grazed, we walked, and sometimes we ran through the meadow, just because it was possible. Between milkings, of course, because you can't run with those gigantic udders between your legs. But if we can, we'll take it. I come from a long line of dairy cows. My mother, my grandmother, and the cows before them always helped our farmer and his father and the people before him. We have given a lot, and on a day like this, I skip happily and gratefully through the meadow. I hope the farmer is grateful too. Today is a good day. I can feel the grass underneath my hooves, the sun on my back, and I have the company of my friends. It's not raining, which is nice, although being outside in the rain is still better than spending all the time in the stable. My hoofs and legs hurt so much, all my joints, basically. But today is a good day. My body doesn't bother me. It's fantastic. A while ago I slipped and my entire body hurt so much, it was horrible. Safety first, for the cows. So I cooperate and I resist. I'm always checking how far I can go. Enter the barn a little later than the farmer wants. I'll be there in a moment. The farmer respects me to a certain extent. He knows that I am one of the top cows and that I am strict and fair. This gives me more freedom. If a farmer doesn't like you or doesn't trust you, well, that's not good for him. I don't want that. Not for myself or for the rest of us. I've heard of cows who hide their children when they're born. I would do that too if I thought it would help. I'll cooperate, but don't hurt me. If you hurt me, I'll hurt you.
Okay, we would now like to share our future vision with you. And it has three parts of it, so bodies and food, landscape and relations. And we're going to start with bodies and food. And we do that with the Body Talk Show. So I would like to invite all my cows to the talk show area. Okay, all my cows and the dog can go to the talk show area. Alright, welcome ladies, because you're all ladies. Yeah, let's talk about your bodies. And I have been walking around on some farms with cows, and I hear a lot of complaints between the cows in the stable, so I'm really curious about your own bodies and what you're experiencing with your own bodies. Who can say something about that?
I suffer from itching due to parasites, and I want to have a soft skin without crust and itching. And when the sun is shining and it's very hot outside, it's nice, but there's not enough shade to lay down. So it's getting worse, the itching.
I'm sorry about that. How is it for the others? Amar, how do you feel about the heat and shade? Is there enough shade?
Sometimes by a tree or when the farmer puts up a little, tarp or something, yeah. But in the stable it also gets very hot.
Yeah.
So, it depends.
And flies bother me.
Me too.
And what about you?
Well, for me, it's mainly my legs that hurt me, and the rest is of course bothersome as well, but yeah, it's mainly my body that hurts so much.
And was it always like that?
No, I can remember I felt, alive and good, but I slipped in the stable at some point, and since then, everything. And it's become less, but there is not really one day where I feel really good.
And we have 3 dairy cows with us here, but we also have a double muscled cow with a mean, which of course you have a completely different body. Could you say something with me about your body?
Well, in general, I'm fine. My body is okay, and I don't have to complain that much. But when I have my delivery, after that, it hurts. I don't know why, but it hurts really.
And how does the delivery go? Do you do it by yourself or is it with an operation?
It's not possible anymore because the babies are too big for my birth canal, so they need to do something. And then the delivery itself is okay. It's I don't feel anything and it's okay. But afterwards, it can go on for, well, how do you call that in human language? Weeks?
And it's interesting here, like we're not here with just female cows because I think only females care about their bodies, but actually when I visited the dairy farms I couldn't find any bulls, any male cows. Have you ever met a bull?
No?
Well, I've had a bull.
Yeah, you
I
had
wish I
one.
could meet, but
I can't remember.
No.
I
No.
wish I but I don't know.
No. It's strange, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pity.
I don't know, but it's not so strange, it's always women.
Yeah, always women.
So we've been talking about how things are for you now, but when you think about your, like probably things will not change for you anymore since you're already close to dying age. Sorry to say that, but if you think about your great-great-grandchildren, what would you want for them?
Long life.
Yeah.
And
Also for the boys.
and also for the
Yeah.
boys and the
Yeah.
little other
Yeah, others, small others.
not,
Yeah.
not that pain.
Yeah.
Also a bit more autonomy over themselves, so they can stand wherever they like. They can be with their best friend.
Yeah.
Not taken away by his mother, by the mother.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to.
I mean, I don't have any calves yet, and I don't know if I do want to have any calves if they have to grow up in the same.
well, you don't have the choice, my dear, I'm afraid.
Oh.
Yeah.
But in future maybe or
Yeah.
I hope in future my grandchildren won't have a complicated delivery and they can do it on their own.
Yeah. And that they live in the forest and that they are always happy and that they can skip around whenever they want and when they can and that they can
More
all the
natural.
time.
Yeah,
Natural.
and that they are not hassled by flies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we have to wrap up now because there are 2 little children waiting to take the stage.
okay.
But thank you very much.
Ja, ons is half hier.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yes, Janneke, bravo. It's your turn. And these are Janneke who's 7 years old and Karel who's 12 years old and they've come all the way to us from 2050.
Yes, from the Achterhoek.
From the Achterhoek, yeah, near Lochem, I believe, right? Yeah. And we're very curious to know, what have you had for breakfast today, Janneke?
Strawberries.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Where did they come from?
From my garden.
Obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. Most people, their opa helps them. Yeah.
And what sort of things do you eat during the day?
For me, breakfast first. Or, yeah, well, I don't eat a lot during the morning because I'm not hungry then. But I'm used to drink a lot of corn milk in the morning, and also some fruits which we collect outside, and bread, of course, walnuts and oats. Yeah.
Pears.
Yes, yeah.
And did you know that you're saying corn milk, but did you know that in the past people used to drink milk that came from cows?
Yeah, we learned about it at school, and we also have some little in the backyard from our house. She's my neighbor. We have a stable in the backyard. It was a stable, and now it's a museum.
Oh, I
We
think I
have some-
see it over
yeah,
there.
it's
Yeah.
over there. And they taught us they were used to milking cows and drink the milk from cows. Yeah, we heard about it.
And have you ever tasted cow's milk?
My friend is
Interesting. Yeah. So you would not. Yeah. No, that makes no sense. No. But I want to hear about that later, your cow friend. Yeah, and I'm just also curious where most of your food comes from.
Now, as she told it's from our own garden, and we collect with our neighbors. So once a week we have a market. On Saturday it is. Yeah, we can change food with each other, and I don't know, someone brings food to the market. I don't know where it's coming from. Do you?
No, my mom and dad sent me with a list, but I don't know.
No, I don't know. You can get it at the market.
Hey, Janneke, I want to hear more about your friendship later, so you can stay.
Oh.
But you can go back, because we need to talk to Rick.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was the body and the food part of the future vision. And of course, we also talked about the landscape, and you can also see over there, you can take a closer look later, all the elements that the cows and the children groups wanted from the landscape. And it was interesting to see that there was actually a lot of overlap between what cows and future children would want. So maybe Rick, can you mention a few things that?
Yeah, when we look out the garden, look out the window, sorry, in the garden, we see a very variety in landscape, meadow, but also meadow with bushes, and sometimes we see wolves and foxes walking around, and sometimes even a cow in our garden, and little streams, and I also see a small lake far away, so it's a variety, flowers in spring and summer. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought what we also came across is that the food that is grown is no longer like monoculture, but more like different varieties within one farm, and the water is clean. And cows also like to swim, not just kids, so they both wanted some clean surface water to take a nice splash in, as you can also see over there. And then finally we come to the relationship aspect of the future. So how are the relationships between the cows and the humans, both when it comes on a more sort of power relation level and also on the individual level? And so now I would like to invite a very special guest, which is the daughter of cow 147, who is still alive in 2050 because she was one of the first cows to allowed to stay alive until old age. She's now 23 years old. Welcome. And I hear that you are friends. Can you tell me a little bit how you met?
Yeah, so I was just walking around, standing with my family and with my friends, and then she came by on an excursion, and she just was very friendly. She came up to me and she just started scratching me, and yeah, she was very curious, and I'm also very curious towards people, so yeah, I wanted to meet her.
I knew from my nature appreciation class that she wanted friends. Her cow language told me that I could go up to her and let her smell my hand and see if I could scratch her. And so now we swim a lot, right?
Yeah.
We lie in the sun.
Yeah, in the grass.
And are all the cows, they all have human friends, or are you different from the other cows?
No, well, cows are curious by nature, so they always come with me, but nobody has this close of a relationship. I see it with the younger cows that they're getting more curious, but yeah, because now people are friendly towards us, so we do the same.
And one last question. What do you like best about each other?
She's very gentle and kind and not like my brother.
Same.
Good, thank you, and have a good time together.
Thanks.
So now we have this wonderful future vision where cows and children are best friends and go swimming together in the forests, and there is no owning of one by the other, no power imbalance. And of course the question is, how do we get there? So then the assignment was to come up with policy advice and policy measures. We'll present those now. Just for how the process has gone is that some or quite many policy measures they've already consented on in the previous session, and there are one or two that we still need to deliberate and vote on today. And we're going to start with the question of how are we going to go from the situation now when it comes to number of cows to a situation where we have fewer cows that are living freely in a suitable environment. But before we do that, we will hear the story of De-mooo.
I'm Willemien, big muscle cow, I've been called. I will tell you some average day in my life. Well, sometimes I lay down in my stable, or sometimes I'm standing on my legs, a little bit swinging, and a little bit sleepy, snoozing. And then at a certain time, when the lights appear in the stable through the window, I wake up, start to chew on nice hay or rechew what I've left. And well, in the winter, it's not really my cup of tea because I like outside. But in winter, we stay in the stable, nose against nose, and it's nice. But I prefer especially the spring, because then I can stay in the meadow and run around like a toddler and jumping and all these crazy things which people like, but we as well. Summer is not really my cup of tea because, as I told you, the flies are irritating me. And but I like the grass, especially when it's a bit moisture from the rain. Well, actually, I don't have to complain that much because I can keep my babies. So that's fine. I'm lucky. But the thing is, the delivery, and especially after the delivery, because I'm a big muscled cow, my birth canal is too small to let the calf through. So, then people do something with me. I don't know how and what, but actually I don't feel anything from the delivery, so that's fine. But then afterwards, you feel the more, and it can go. It's painful and irritating, and It can go on for weeks and weeks. But I like it when my baby is gonna stay with me, because then I can raise her as a decent cow. I wish I could say the same of my male siblings, or male children, but unfortunately, then they are not really appreciate them because they're taking them away. Actually, I'm a bit distressed when I hear the engine of a truck, because then my colleagues will get away and I don't know where they are going, but I never see them again. So that's not really nice, and I try to hide when I heard the engine or whatever, try to run away. But it's complicated because the farm, it's not nice, of course, the delivery and this engine, and that you don't see your friends and acquaintances. But on the other hand, the farmer gives me nice food as well and let me walk into this big meadow with my colleagues. So, yeah, it's not easy, life of a cow.
Thank you, William. So, the first idea to reduce the number of cows was to, the first thing that came into people's head was we needed breeding ban. But then we thought about it a bit more and we thought, well, maybe a phasing out plan is a bit better. So we had some discussions about how long it could take to phase out the breeding. And of course, to combine it with a compensation scheme for farmers also, with the future generations thinking, oh, these are basically my ancestors and we don't want our ancestors to be without a job and no compensation all of a sudden. So we thought to combine the phasing out scheme with compensation scheme, and the duration we agreed on for it to take is a maximum of 15 years. And what we also thought about is if there are to see if there are opportunities within the breeding to breed out the characteristics that are harmful to the bodies of the cows, so that you do not breed them to have the huge udders anymore, because when they're free-living cows they don't, there's no use for that for the cows themselves. And then there was also the idea that we didn't know it was possible, but you have all these cows and where do they go? Because if you stop breeding and you don't kill, which we will get to later, then you still have a lot of cows. So, and the Netherlands is a small country with very expensive ground, so we thought maybe there is another country with a lot more forest space and we can start a reservation there and move just the female cows there to live until old age without any reproduction as an alternative to killing them. So then the decision was to have research done to figure out if that's a possible idea. And then the idea was also that once there is a small population of cows for which there is enough space in the Achterhoek to live freely in a nice area, then some reproduction can take place again. And then there can still be some management by humans to diversify the gene pool again, because now of course it's artificial insemination offered from the same pool, so that's genetically not ideal when it comes to the immune system and things like that. And how we exactly manage the population is something we will get to later. So this is what we agreed on, but then there was the question of, do we still kill cows, or do we stop immediately with killing cows? Because of course for future generation cows it would be nicer if we still kill, because then they get to a place where there's enough space for them faster. But for present cows, of course, they don't want to die, so there was a lot of tension there. And actually, we're going to see now if we can come to a sort of agreement on this today or not. So the procedure is as follows. If you have an opinion on this, you want to speak on this, you can raise your hand and then I will ask you to explain. You can explain why you are against an immediate ban on killing instead of euthanasia, or you can do a proposal for amending it. Or you can say why you're in favor, of course, as well. If you raise your hand, then I speak. Yeah.
Well, I'm against the culling. I don't want any cows to be killed. I do understand the importance and the pros and the cons, but I'm against. And there is one exception. If it's beneficial to the cow, then I'm in favor.
So you're in favor of how it is stated now, immediate ban on killing except for euthanasia.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think I saw Esther also raising her hand.
Yeah, of course I'm against killing of my own mates. So I am in favor. I'm in favor about spreading the cows through regions, and it can be in Holland or somewhere else. It's nice to have more space, but spread the cows so nobody needs to be killed. And of course, I understand that people produce leather from our skin, shoes and bags maybe, etc. But maybe they can, I think they can invent some artificial material to do that, to replace the skin of the cow.
Yeah, and there is already quite enough leather alternatives, and also there are different cows from the ones we're looking at now. So I think we can discard that issue, don't to worry about that. I'm wondering, is there anyone actually objecting now to this ban on killing?
I'm not sure, but I think there are so many cows that we don't have enough space also abroad who wants our cows, so maybe we can still eat some of them.
I'm not hearing consent on this side of it.
Not me.
But would you propose an alternative to this? Or maybe at a time frame or something?
Yeah, maybe we can say in some years that we ate some of the cows, and then stop eating them in some years. That we have enough space for the rest of the cows.
That would be your proposal?
Yes.
Yes.
Only the older cows, maybe? I'm sorry, I don't mean, no, but
I was going to say only volunteers.
Yeah, and I think there's also the issue that in the Achterhoek there are mostly dairy cows held for dairy, and they're not suitable for eating.
Okay. So a bit of me.
Thank you.
I was so Rick, you are objecting. Is Janneke, are you also objecting? Or I mean, Christy?
The cows, am I objecting? No.
Okay, so something may have changed since last session that we do have 80% consent now. Let's do a vote. Who objects to a ban on killing cows except for euthanasia immediately?
I don't object. I think it's a pity.
Okay, well that's great. Then we have consent on this one as well. And then we hope, of course, that the research on relocating some cows works out.
Yeah, that would be nice.
That would be nice, yes.
I would like to go to Sweden.
Okay, and then we move on to our next section. But before that, we would like to hear the story of 147.
I am 174. I don't have a name, only a number. At the moment we all stand together in the stable. It's quite cold outside, so we keep warm by standing close to each other. We do have a little space to walk in the stable, so I used to always be able to stand next to my best friend. I haven't seen her since the farmer took her. We always stepped in a corner of the stable, where I now sleep alone. I look forward to being in the field, where I can graze, where I can have some more space, and where I don't have to step in other shit all the time. I would love to have some shade out in the meadow, and I always stare at the forest in the distance, where I would love to lay down and ruminate in peace. I am 1 year and a half. I am a heifer, which is a cow without any babies. I heard the other cows who did have babies. Their moos were loud all night when they called for their removed calf. When I was a calf, I also got separated from my mom. I can't remember her smell. When I was finally big enough to join the rest of the cows, I never saw her again. Even though I will grow a bit until I'm officially a cow, I am still a bit smaller than the others. That's because of an infection called coccidiosis, which I had as a calf. It caused growth retardation. I got a lot of treatments and injections and stuff in the so-called milk that I drank. Because of the treatments, I got more relaxed towards the farmer and the humans in general. I'm always curious when people walk by, but that doesn't necessarily mean I like them. I've heard what they can do. Thank you.
Hey, let's talk money. Where do we need money to go? So subsidies. So we didn't work with a budget, but we did think about where money should go, and I think some things have already been mentioned. So the financial compensation for farmers, and then a transition fund towards plant-based and organic farming, and alternative protein-rich crops like lupine, hemp. I think some people also were mentioning marijuana. And that we will require some other assembly on the legal status of growing that. And also for a completely different career for farmers, if it's dairy farming or no farming at all for them. Subsidies for education, so vegan cooking classes or in schools to educate children about plant-based foods. And we were talking to Bram in this session, the expert that we'll hear from later, and we asked him if he thought, because he knows a lot of farmers, if this is something that farmers would go for, if there's just another way to make money, if they would be okay with transitioning. And then in the discussion we found out that it's also a matter of identity often for farmers, and that there isn't really enough research yet on what would be an acceptable change in identity for farmers. So we thought we need to know more about that, and also for the region. So that's also the idea behind there being a museum that acknowledges the history of the region, that it's a region where there was a lot of dairy farming going on, and that we're not going to pretend that it never happened or that those people were awful people or something, but that it changed, but we can still educate about how things used to be in the past. So to really take into account the cultural and identity aspects of the transition. And then just a lot more also for whole foods, plant-based food in schools, prison, hospitals, all those public areas, public procurement by government needs to be whole foods, plant-based, and then subsidies for helping private places transition to go plant-based. And then of course we have a cow expert here, but we need a lot more human cow experts other than cow experts. And so then we need subsidies to train more cow experts. And then the deliberation is, or it's not really that we didn't agree, but we thought we needed to know more about how to keep a stable population of cows, because we couldn't really understand what their preference would be, because there's sort of a trade-off between autonomy of the cows and desire for protection. So if you're a group of cows, would you want humans to protect you from wolves, for example, or from starvation? But then there needs to be some sort of reproduction control, because if there are too many cows, then there's not enough food. And then if there's reproduction control, there's less autonomy. Yeah, so I was thinking, Miriam, can you share a bit about the discussion that we had there?
Yeah, well, it was very interesting because we really, as you mentioned before, it's not a linear process. It's not as if we really went from A to B and then to Z. We talked about what we felt was good for the cows, and that was autonomy, and that was being able to decide about your own body, but also about where you want to live. And then at a certain point in time, we realized that this sounds fantastic. However, if there are more cows, there will also be more bulls, and there will be more reproduction, because the way it's now, it's just not natural. That would mean more cows, and then there goes the space again. So that is really something that needs to be researched properly, because we just don't know. Maybe in this, I can't remember the name, small part in the Netherlands where we have this kind of
The sanctuary.
no, not a sanctuary. Yes, yeah, that's where officially the government or no humans are controlling this part, and yeah, the animals do die.
It's a bit of a disaster. So we want to avoid a second Oostvaarders
Yeah,
disaster.
yeah.
Yeah.
I did see a beautiful movie about it, but yeah. So how? Yeah. What is the best option for the cows at this point in time? We just don't know. We have to research this. Yeah, we don't know.
So then the idea is that subsidies go to researching that. And now, before we go to the last section of policy measures, we would like to hear from Helen.
Hi, my name is Yannicka. I'm 7 years old, and I'm still kind of mad about something. My Oma and Opa built me a tree house right before my brother was born, and a windstorm destroyed it. All the branches are scattered everywhere, so they can't build another one and put it back up. So I'm really mad about that. And I learned a little bit about the windstorm in my nature appreciation course, but it doesn't make me feel any better. So I go to school, and Carol, my neighbor, walks me to school. And he's nice, he's older, and he's a swear word sometimes. But the courses I like best are math, because all I have to do is play a game. And then the other course I like is nature appreciation, because it always changes how I see the animals. So when I was 5, nature appreciation was about the squirrels, and I thought the squirrels were very stupid. But when we sat in fields, and then when we walked through the trees, I realized that they're quite clever and they fight a lot. And then last year it was the cows, and I thought the cows would be just smelly and dumb. But it turns out that they have a whole language where they communicate with each other and they avoid us humans. But if we pay attention, we can know which ones to approach, which ones want us to approach, and when to stay away. And they're also not as smelly as I thought. And they take me to the best flowers and the best grass and the warmest swimming spots. So that's all I have to say.
Yes, thank you, Yannicka.
Thank you.
Alright, for the last and maybe most important policy measures, the relations between cows and humans in the future and how to get there. So I think from the future vision that has been painted, it's quite clear that cows are no longer property for the law, so that requires a significant legal change of the status of cows in the law, and we all consented to that. And then, because we want to understand cows better, we said, oh well, kids are getting a course in cow language like Yannicka is having in school, but then actually it would be quite good if politicians or human politicians, maybe we have cow politicians at some point, and cows together get a course in interspecies communication, so that not just kids learn to talk with cows, but also those in power. And then in the process of getting to that future, we thought during the next 10 years, we should create a sort of a living lab of a small area in the Achterhoek where cows and humans live now, but change that to an area where they can live free together. So a bit like a sanctuary, but a bit bigger than a sanctuary. And then see what sort of issues we run into, like when it comes to car traffic, for example. How do we need to change that so that it's safe for the cows and the kids? And do cows have a preference to go close and maybe sleep in someone's barn, or do they want to stay in the forest all the time? So that we can figure it out a bit more, and that seems something that we can start doing in the next 10 years in a very specific area. And then we want democratic voting options for children as well as cows. Both groups are now generally not included in democratic processes. And there is this concept of food voting. And who was going to explain food voting again? Yeah? Christy?
Did you see me hiding?
Yes. That's why I saw you.
Boo. Okay, so I missed that practice, but from what I understand, it's that if you pay attention to where the cows travel, they'll tell you where they want to be, right? So they'll tell you if they prefer the greens in one area over another, or maybe it's sunlight, and maybe you could elaborate a little more, or?
Yeah, like, so if you have a stable on one side or forest on one side, you can see which the cows prefer. So that's for you.
Yeah, and you can deliberately create options to vote on, so it's not just waiting to see what happens, but if you're curious about something, you can deliberately create those options. And also direct and indirect representation of both children and cows. So indirect is sort of what we're doing now, but the food voting is an example of more direct representation. And hopefully through such a living that we can find out more ways of direct representation as well. And that we recognize resistance as a way of voting, so resistance as a political act, and that we acknowledge it as such. And then I think because this is still a little bit vague, because we cannot really see sharply how this will play out in the future, and because the power relations are so asymmetrical that there's not so much space for this right now. Maybe later on in the reflection you can also contribute your ideas on this and maybe as well. And then finally we have the regulation. We want to make the lobby regulation stricter, and then there's no meat or dairy industry financed activities in schools, like exactly. Like the school milk program that we have, that such things are not allowed anymore, or no more meat commercials on television, things like that. So that is our set of regulations. And then we now have the last bio of cows.
Well, as said before, I'm Karel. I'm 12 years old, and I live all of my life in Lochem, in the Achterhoek, the region in the east of Holland. I have two older sisters, and I live with my mother, and my sisters, we fight a lot, so I don't interact a lot with them, only fighting. I used to go to school every day, all day, from 9 till 4 o'clock about, and I always take my girl next door, Janneke, to school, because she's a bit smaller and younger. So I take her every day, but usually it goes okay, I think. Yeah. And I like to game a lot every day, many hours gaming. And then my mother tells me to go outside, and then I like skating at the skate park. It's behind the stables here. And what I also do some hours a week is I learned at school to interact with cows, particularly, and guide the cows in different areas in the neighborhood where I guide them to fresh bushes or meadow and water, swim with the cows and observe where they want to go to learn from them, and I hope they learn from me as well. So, is that enough?
Yeah, thank you, Gabriel.
Okay.
No more gaming today.
Oh.
Okay. So here is an overview of all the measures, and then I think, combined there are some measures that are already being considered, like compensation for certain farmers, transition funds, and others that are completely different from the types of policy measures now on the table in a transition towards a sustainable food system. But this does end our assembly with these measures. So I would like to say thank you very much to the citizens for engaging in this process of 4 days of preparation and today. And I think we have come up with a very nice policy mix that the imagined government will now implement. So I think that will and now I would very much like to hear from our experts first, and then from the audience some reflections, and then the last 10 minutes or so I would like to have some space for you to walk around and look at all the images and maybe ask direct questions about their experiences. But yeah, since Leonie is here present, let's hear your reflections on what you've heard and how do you feel about it.
So, well, I heard so many narratives and so many ideas, so it's a bit difficult to go through all what you have raised. I think it's a beautiful exposition, thought exposition. And what I especially like is that the cows may live, that they will have space, and maybe this is possible just to have a cow. A lot of practices believe just having one calf, because one calf is enough for a cow because she has a child with her all the time, all life. So maybe this is a way to look at it. And I heard when cows were presenting themselves, I heard a lot of resistance. On the one hand, there is a lot of collaboration with the farmers. So, for instance, some cows really wanted to collaborate with the farmer, and they also say, the farmer is doing a lot of good stuff. But on the other hand, there was a lot of protesting as well. So the question is, how do you convince humans to listen to you? So that they recognize it as a protest and as resilience in a way. So I think that's very, so Mira, for instance, she talked about, she had a memory of all her deliveries. It's something that a farmer will, in a way, deny that the cow has a memory of all the cows and all the deliveries before. So we need more research into that. Does the cow remember or not? And also, for instance, Mira wanted to stomp her back legs as a protest. That's what she wanted to do. But now, if you do that, you will not live very long as a cow because you will be selected to go to the slaughterhouse immediately. So for cow, it's a very delicate balance. You want to show resilience and you want to show protest, but you cannot go too much because otherwise you will kill yourself because the farmer will select you. Then Koe said, if you hurt me, I will hurt you. Which is also very problematic, I think, in the current situation. And I'm thinking about the body. I would love to ask the cows involved that there was a lot about the body, but not about the smell. So how does it feel for you, you all smell as good as dogs. So how does it feel to be in a barn and to stand on your own shit and to smell? So we know from if humans smell, for instance, ammonia in high concentrate, that it hurts in your nose. So what about you, cows? About when talking about the body. So I think
You answered your own question.
Okay. Then more about the policy. I was thinking, the Netherlands is now importing a lot of cows. Import. So breeding cows here is much cheaper. For instance, for Ireland, we import a lot of cows from Ireland, and it is cheaper here to breed them, to raise them until 6 months old, than to do that in Ireland. So it's not only the population of cows living in the Netherlands, but also how does that go? So how do we stop the import? So I was thinking about the transitioning and the farmer identity. That's a very tough question because, of course, the farmer identity is not an individual identity, but also constructed collective and throughout generations. So it's not something that it's not. I was thinking about the coal miners because I'm raised in a coal mining community. But everyone was a coal miner, and then they just stopped the mines, and then so then. And we are now in the 5th generation, and still a lot of problems. When you take away the collective identity as well. So that's okay.
Maybe we can do that's what we most that we can do research to discover the identity and then maybe to construct another one on the basis on the results of the research.
Yeah, the farmers have to do it themselves.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and then so they okay. So
And that's a very, I mean, I am an entrepreneur.
yeah.
I don't identify myself with my company, and it's very important for me. I do understand to a degree that the farmers feel differently about it.
So but when did you become an entrepreneur?
That's not as long ago as a regular farmer.
So for a farmer, you are born into the entrepreneurship.
I know, I realize that, but on the other hand, it's also, get a grip, get over this. And to a degree, yeah. I mean, I do understand.
Okay.
But
Okay,
there's also,
I'm just raising.
Can we let you finish your, because Bram is also waiting.
And then I was thinking, because you like to balance the power dynamics between cow and humans, and the assembly, you were talking about the reproduction of cows in 50 years. But maybe the cows want to say something about the reproduction of humans. So how do we assure that the thoughts about reproduction of cows is also balanced by how the cow thinks about so many humans? Okay.
Very interesting. Yeah.
I think that's really a power issue. So
Yeah.
why should we think about the cow's fertility but not the other?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, very interesting. Okay, I have one here, but the sound system on that one is not working. So hopefully it will work now just on my laptop. Can you say something? Yes, okay, I'm gonna turn it up so everyone can hear you.
Sure. I just needed to switch off the YouTube live
Yeah.
stream.
This is Bram.
Hi, everybody.
Were you able to hear us on YouTube or see the podcast?
Yes.
Okay,
We
good.
follow the live stream loud and clear.
That's
Thanks.
very reassuring.
Yes.
And can you share your reflections on the policy mix that we came up with?
Yes, I can, and I'm very happy to, because indeed, I was very much enthusiastic about what you presented, and you used the term policy mix, Anna, and it's actually also what came to mind when I was attending your assembly, even though you presented it as a long list. But to me, it appeared as if it's a comprehensive set of different types of policies that you have come up with. So they cover regulations, subsidies and financing, but also awareness raising, research, and even thinking about a new democracy altogether. It also involves some kind of direct representation of groups that are not represented currently, I would say, in our political economy. And I think this policy mix that you have come up with, that you have presented here, it's important because it allows us to work towards different future trajectories at the same time. And let me just elaborate a bit on those trajectories that I saw, or at least that I recognized in your policy mix. The first one is very much about incentivizing new views and practices, and that's where I think some of these subsidies come in, and the awareness raising. But it's also clearly about discouraging obsolete practices and even phasing out and stopping harmful practices that are detrimental to the well-being of cows in this case. And thirdly, you are creating space, you are giving space to very new, highly transformative practices and democratic structures. And I think it's very nice to see that these three different trajectories can be recognized in your policy mix. And I think that also makes it very different from present day policies, because oftentimes they tend to be very ad hoc, and they tend to be very fragmented, and they tend to be very short-term oriented. So single issue policies. Many of them are geared towards protecting the status quo. So what you present is going well beyond this. It's an interspecies view instead of an anthropocentric one, and it's clearly future-oriented. It dares instead of it protects. What I also very much liked in your policy mix is the fact that you have come up with this mix based on this 80% consent as the solid base for decision making. And it made me realize, and I looked it up, I have to admit, when watching the live stream, that in some important policy making that is taking place currently in the EU on animal well-being, we have actually also reached this 80% consent among EU citizens. Still, in the end, the political outcome is different. An example of this that I just want to stress is, for instance, the ending of caged animal keeping. So the keeping of farmed animals in cages. So that mainly happens in poultry, but also with rabbits and pigs. And in 2021, after a citizens' initiative, it was decided, which was signed by I think 1 million EU citizens, it was decided, and it was backed up, according to the EU survey, by no less than 89% of EU citizens. The European Commission decided that, okay, we have to put a ban on this caged animal keeping. But then the lobby kicked in, the lobby from the farming industry, from the meat industry, and they were able to reach out to high-level EC commissioners and representatives. And now, in October 2023, what we see, this was the actual deadline of putting this ban into place. It has not happened. And it is still unclear whether that will still happen. So you also refer to the lobbying by addressing the handing out of milk to school children. I think this is a very crucial other part of lobbying that is very influential if you really want to move towards these transformative policies that you suggest, and if you want to break away from these, let's say, more protectionist measures that we currently have in place. So I would just like to add that political will is really key if we really want to achieve these kinds of policy mixes. And it also, I think, requires a new social imaginary, and I could see that already in your suggestions. So if we are thinking about new legislation and new regulations, we really have to put sustainability and the rights of humans, non-humans, and nature at the heart of this lawmaking. So I saw that nicely reflected in your suggestion that cows are not property. So that requires a new social imaginary which can be translated into new law concerning property and ownership. And finally, it was very nice to see, I think, that you have come up with these policy mixes from a new constituency, so with different aspirations and different needs. So it's much more diverse, inclusive, and long-term oriented, intergenerational, than in the current political economy that we have, which tends to be more anthropocentric and industry driven. So those are some of my reflections on your nice harvest.
Yes, thank you very much, Rob. And since we only have 15 minutes left, I would now like to invite you to share questions or reflections or comments. And I see Sebi already raising her hand.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks everyone over embodying your characters. So obviously this was a great sort of interspecies democracy experiment, but it's only with one species. So my question is, what about the other species, the free living wild animals that might be affected if cows are then in the forest or other species? So how would this process work with many other species? Because it's not just cows.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And I think we simplified this a lot, also leaving out the international dimension of import and things like that, because we just wanted to try out to see if something like this could even work at all. And it's best to keep it small, also because we only have 6 people and there are a lot more species than we have people. So I think we need to, but we can build from this, I think. Yeah, and then of course you need a lot more people and budget and stuff, and I don't think it would be impossible. I mean, maybe impossible to represent all species because there might be species that we don't even know exist. But yeah, and I think also it depends on the issue, how small or how big it is, or maybe to have several rounds of assemblies and try to work this out as we go along. So not wait to have an assembly representing just domesticated animals until we figured it all out, because it's too urgent issue.
I like to add to that. I had a similar question, but I like to add to make it perhaps smaller. Like you were saying about what the cows would think about also the human, and I was thinking, for example, about the wild animals, like the beavers are increasing so as inhabitants, also in the meadow. Or the muskrats, and there are holes and they break their legs, so the farmers take care of the cows in a way, maybe by closing or whatever. But it's a species that's closer than all other species that's coming in the Netherlands. So maybe that could add to discussion that makes it smaller.
Thank you. Yes.
A very specific question. You said stop breeding in 15 years. That's at least 3 breeding cycles. Why so long? Why 15?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to remember the discussion. There was some discussion about the time frame, and I think eventually we said max 15 years.
It did say max 15. That's
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it was because there were some concerns.
Also, it takes some time to adjust the farmers, have another job, or we cannot just put the cows on the street tomorrow. So we need time to time frame.
Yeah, also the
That was
research
mentioned.
that needs to be done, that also will take time.
Yeah, so we know how we need to have an alternative living for the cows that keep on living, and that takes time as well, and also maybe to breed them into healthier bodies might also gonna take some time. But we did now agree to stop killing immediately. So, and of course, the breeding doesn't have to happen in the same way as it is happening out as intensively, like enough every year is not necessarily part of that. So phasing out can indeed start with having just what you were saying, 1 calf per cow, and not 5 and then die. But yeah.
Sorry, can I ask a follow-up question? So do you think policies to increase the service life of the dairy cows, to keep so the cows live longer, would be an intermediate step towards phasing out the breeding?
I mean, we haven't discussed that yet. I don't know if we can answer it now or if we need to think about it a bit more. But yeah, I think the idea is more that we advise that the phasing out plan needs to be created and that it can take maximum of 15 years and that it cannot involve any killing. And that's as far as we've gotten.
Okay.
Just connecting to that because I think maybe you know about that too because you're the cow expert, but you can't really keep the cows in service without breeding because they won't give milk. So it might be you can just adjust the breeding and everything, but at some point cows will stop giving milk, and I think that is also important. And also important for the cows because they maybe don't want to give milk.
Yeah.
But that's the point in the discussion. I can remember that we didn't stop breeding at once, but in a graduated phases, like for example 1 year not and 1 year up or something. Pregnancy. Yeah. So that they have the milk slightly reduced.
So could we inhabit the Netherlands such that a cow could become a companion animal instead of a food animal? So that every human in the Netherlands lives together with one cow? To solve the problem.
I think it's a question if cows would like that, or if they prefer to live in a herd situation also.
Yes, that's so 2 cows is the minimum, I think. But we know from India, for instance, the herds are very small that they live with humans.
Yeah.
So that the humans are part of the herd. Could that?
It's something that we can research also if we have the experiment, the living lab, and then of course there are people in that area with gardens and see if a set of cows would like to stay, if they enjoy that or not.
Yeah.
I think it has to be something we need to research if that's an option.
Yeah, because it's not only that the humans or the farmers have to transition and the consumers and all the entrepreneurs involved in all the food production, meat and dairy, but also we need to change the categorization of the cows and food.
Yeah, and closer presence to humans could definitely help the way.
Yeah, that's maybe better than making them brown because it's too difficult for a cow to become white.
Yeah, that's also in the discussion we had how much autonomy would cows prefer. Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
I was curious about you decided so 2 scenarios from which the future generations took a perspective or started the liberation process, and this sort of future scenario is very almost like a utopia, or at least I imagine it to be something like that. But if you look at the current political forces, you might expect things go in a different direction in the coming decades. So why from this scenario instead of something else, and how did it affect the deliberations?
Yeah, I think we wanted to start with indeed a utopian sort of, or future that seemed ideal to these groups, and I think the idea was that I wanted to create space for a radical different imaginary, because I think there is also power in radical different imaginaries, and perhaps they are utopian, but I think if you look at the policy measures that we are suggesting, they are not all so far removed from what we're already doing, and some are quite radical, but still, this can help to see it happening, and also you can see the benefits, what you gain if you make those radical choices, that you can see a cow and a child having a friendship, that's also something wonderful. And maybe if you have something wonderful that you gain through such a future, then it's a little bit less difficult to give up your milk, for example. So that's the thought behind it, also the power of what's called utopian demands. And yeah, I think it affected the deliberation and the advice in the sense that we got much more radical suggestions than would have gone otherwise if we'd started from the current situation. And I think I also noticed it with you during the process that in the beginning, your suggestions were less radical than in the end. In the beginning I heard a bit more things like, I don't know, valuing waste streams or something like that, and now it's more like, okay, let's have an equal relation between cows and humans and teach everyone cow language, which is completely different from like ecosystem services. Something like that.
But yeah, it was also helped, of course, that the cows were asked what they wanted. And the current system is not what the cows want. So then it's, yeah, you could call it utopia, I get that. But yeah.
We dream big.
Yeah. So yeah, and indeed, if you start from what we're doing now, and how's your opinion on that, or what do you want, how would your perfect life be, and there is a big difference between that. So it's an interesting way of working. Yeah. I also asked what you call it radical.
I have a more methodology-related, I would say, question. Because thank you very much for this session. It was very interesting, and I'm also doing part of a project, which is also the role of this project is somehow to, let's say, test different tools, how to, let's say, bring more than humans into the decision-making process somehow, and I think this storytelling and was very nice. But I'm very, I wonder how you assign the different roles, or in reality, like that you are representing and some more than human personality somehow, and who, like, from, because now we are like all humans somehow here, and then we have our own human perspectives, and I think it was well picked up also in this discussion, but how to proceed in reality, and if you have some experience, it would be very nice to share.
Yeah, we have not done this for real yet, but it would be cool if we could. And this does happen with future generations being included in citizens' assembly, especially in Japan. There is experience with that, and we also followed a similar process to what they're doing there. So there you also have a specific group of current humans assigned the role of taking on the perspective of future generations, and they also wear like a special kimono so that they really feel that they have like the legitimacy to forget about their own interests and represent future generation interests, and that works a lot better than when you say just take into account future generations. They really come up with a lot more original and more radical suggestions, and so I think you can expand that into also non-human animals, and we're also in conversation with Bureau Burgerberaad, who organizes real citizens' assemblies, and hoping that they were very interested, so hopefully together with them we can figure out a way to make this happen for real, and it can even start small in a way that the ratio between humans and non-human representatives is not as you would want it ideally, but I think we can incrementally build on that, and that this can be a way in citizens' assemblies to have the positions and the interests of non-human animals taken on. I don't think it's enough to do it in this way, but I think it can open up ways for more direct representations.
A small question. I'm curious how you came up with nature appreciation classes.
We heard from Janneke that they have those in the future.
Thought about it and you brought it up?
Yes.
Yes, they all created their own stories. It's not scripted in that way.
Then I have a question for Janneke. So, how did you come up with the nature appreciation classes?
So here's a secret, I'm not Dutch. I was raised differently, and so it was part of how I was raised to pay attention to the animals in my environment. So I didn't bring much of that in here, respecting the vision, respecting De-mooo-cracy, but it seemed to me a place where there was a natural alignment. But maybe I can elaborate more in 3 years when I better understand Dutch culture. I'm pretty new here.
Okay. Thank you.
I think we're out of time, but if you want, you can still take a look and walk around and yeah. But thank you for being here and thank you everyone watching.
Okay.
Live
I want
stream.
to have 1 second.
Oh.
Because you took a lot of effort in us and in this project, and we'd like to thank you. Maybe it's not common to do this at university, but really well. So for us, you are graduating for your postdoc, and we have got a little present for you.
Thank you
2
so
presents for your effort and your time and your energy.
But because I know there's a program we're in, so yeah, you can still come up to us and ask questions and look around. Thank you for being